Hello, this is Natus Corner. I hope you're all doing great. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today I'm delighted to have one of my most favorite guests, and he's one of the first featured guests on my channel. So I should probably just give a background of how I know this gentleman. So we grew up in the same hometown. We went to the same primary school, and his oldest brother is one of my closest friends. Dare I say, one of my best friends. And I'm lucky enough to also call him my brother-in-law and the father to my one and only nephew. So without further ado, I'm delighted to introduce Alex. Alex, welcome to Natus Corner. And please tell the guests more about yourself.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor to be in your channel.
Thank you.
So it's not to say, my name is Alex, her brother-in-law. So just a little bit of a background on me. I was born and raised in Tanzania up to my teens. And in the first year of my university, I got a scholarship to go study in Japan. But at that time, I was dating Anita, as you will know.
My sister.
Yeah, and we broke up, unfortunately, at that time. But I went to study in Japan, and I studied pharmaceutical sciences. And then I got my first job in Japan working for a tech company. So very different from what I studied. And then I worked there for a couple of years. But then I decided to go back to the pharmaceutical industry, and I worked for a year. But then I got tempted again to go back to working in the technology industry, working for another Japanese tech company, and that journey led me to Rwanda. And I think just around that time when I started working for this second technology company, I reconnected again with Natu's sister Anita, and that was a big factor in me taking up that job, because it meant working in Rwanda or in Africa, and potentially eventually in Tanzania, where we had decided that's where we would live eventually. Yeah, so I worked for that technology company in Rwanda for a couple of years, and that's the time when I also got married to Anita, and she moved from Canada and came to join me in Rwanda. So we lived there for a couple of years, and then that technology company decided to invest in Tanzania. So we moved to Tanzania, and unfortunately, the journey in Tanzania was only a year, because again, the company decided to stop the businesses in Africa, unfortunately. But Anita and I had decided that we were going to stay in Tanzania at that time. So I had to pivot again, and I got a job working for NGO, One Acre Fund, which was as a head of procurement at that time. I got that job and I worked for a year there, but during this year, Anita was just trying to find opportunities in Tanzania. But unfortunately, she couldn't find anything. We had decided that maybe she should come back to Canada and find opportunities here. And I also then had to join her, so I had to reinvent myself again. And I came to Canada and I joined. I worked remotely in the beginning, but then I got my PR and I got a job at a great company now. And yeah, here I am in Canada
Here you
now.
are.
Yeah.
I have to say, and maybe I'm biased because he's my brother-in-law, but one of the things I admire the most about you is your ability to not only pivot but adapt to new environment, career, be it in your personal life. So you've walked us through how you've had to transition in different careers. You started studying pharmaceutical, but you eventually worked in IT, worked in an NGO, and now you're in a biotech industry. If you had to advise somebody who is looking to pivot into their career, move into a different industry, what advice would you give them? What are the pros and what are the cons?
Well, if you don't need to do it, don't do it.
Cover just the book, man. Don't book the cover. Book, don't whatever. Don't do it. Just don't do it.
Avoid it. Mission avoid.
Avoid it if you don't need to do it.
Okay.
Because one of the biggest cons, obviously, is that since you don't build enough experience in one field or one industry, then it's a disadvantage when you're applying for a new role, because people just look at how long have you been in a certain role? Like, what's the length of your experience?
Okay.
So it makes that difficult for you to get senior roles because somebody will say, oh, you only have one year of experience in this field, even though in total maybe you have a lot of years of experience.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's one of the greatest cons. And then the other one obviously is every time you have to learn new things, adapt to a new environment, which is not easy task, you know. It's a great skill to have, but it's very draining.
Okay.
Right? So it is challenging, and I've had to do it because I had to do it.
You had to
makes
do it.
sense.
So if
Before
you
my family, yeah.
Okay.
So the advice, but it's doable because
Okay.
I've been able to do it, and the main thing is just to focus rather than focusing on industry and what the job is per se. Focus on what the skills are required for that job, and you will find that in many industries, in many fields, there is common skills. What people call transferable skills. You're right. So for me, it's always been the common theme in my roles has always been data analytics and strategy. Starting from even being a researcher in my pharmaceutical sciences days, you know, you collect data, you analyze it in Excel, you know, and you find a way to present the results. So that's data analytics. You know, moving to technology company, I did sales, but I did my own analytics, looking for what's the biggest market we could go to, you know, what kind of clients could we find in those markets, working, you know, investments in Africa, analyzing startups as well. It's data analytics, right? Even now, like doing analytics now, like full time, but the basis was always there. So when I was interviewing for this current role, that's what I said, you know, like it doesn't look like it in my CV, my resume, but I have been doing analytics and thinking about how to grow sales, to grow revenue my whole career. Like even in procurement, you have to analyze and look at the most cost-effective, you know, means of buying things. You know? So that's also analytics. So that's the common skill in all of my roles.
Okay. So the con is you also constantly have to learn, and you don't have enough experience over the years for you to transcend to higher positions. However, it's doable. And if it's doable, you just have to focus on the transferable skills and how can you leverage those.
Exactly.
Interesting. Now, you've also mentioned that you have lived in different countries. We lived in Japan for at least, I'd say 7 years, give or take. You've lived in Rwanda, Tanzania, and now in Canada. We are currently living in a very global economy where people are just migrating from one country to another for different reasons, economic reasons, personal reasons. What advice would you give to somebody who is moving to a new country, navigating the new countries, assimilating to their culture? How would you advise them?
I think there's two main things, right? So one is keep an open mind, obviously, and then the second one is always look forward and not back. So keeping an open mind is that be prepared to find new ways to make yourself happy, to make your family happy. So no two countries obviously are the same, but there's always good differences, right? So I'll give an example. Let's say in Tanzania, it's very easy to just hang out with friends, with buddies, you know, go drinking at a bar and eat inexpensively, but you really can't do that here often in Canada, because in Canada often because it's expensive. However, you have more places where you can have fun as a family, you know, like more places where which are catered for young kids, and there are more places where you can have romantic evenings, more variety of things to do. So you just shift your focus on the things that make you happy. So instead of saying, oh, in Tanzania we were able to do this and this and this, and that made me happy, we can't do that here, think of the other things that can make you happy. The pros in that new place, which you probably couldn't do at the old place, and then just focus on those things that make you happy. So that's the first thing. The second thing, you always need to look forward, in the sense that don't get stuck and say, oh, I'm not going to invest in this new country or new place that I'm living in. If there's an opportunity to buy a home or build a home, do it. If there's an opportunity to invest in a business, do it. Because that planning for the future and looking at, let's say, oh, maybe in 5 years time I could earn this much, it also helps you embrace your new country and solve challenges and solve problems and live fully, instead of saying, no, I'm not gonna do any of that here, I'm just gonna wait until I go back home. Like, don't do that. Just, you're in a new country. If there are opportunities, invest. Yeah.
So no, don't have that temporary mindset. Some of us
Exactly.
keep saying, hey, I'm not going to buy a house because I'm only going to be here for a few years. Need this to say you're there for 10 years. You could have taken advantage.
You could have, exactly my point, yeah.
And what else?
Yeah, so that's key. So those 2 points: finding new ways to make yourself happy. If there's an opportunity to invest. Also find things that are unique about you that not a lot of people have in that particular country. So this was also, for me, it worked a lot in Japan because, in Japan, at that time anyway, there weren't a lot of Tanzanians, especially in university, like Tokyo University, like those traditional like government universities, right? So if let's say they needed somebody to show diversity, I know for people hate that, but for me I embraced it because I was like, for me this is an opportunity. Like, I get FaceTime, I get exposure, I get recognition, and then when I tell people that I study in Tokyo University, they're like, wow, you must be very smart. So that opened a lot of doors. Even after I graduated and went to apply for jobs, they're like, wow, you are Tanzanian and you study at Tokyo University, you must be smart. So they didn't even ask me the hard questions because they're like, oh, he's smart.
He's smart.
There's no way that, so...
And I think you're also paving way to other Tanzanians who are coming after you too.
Yeah, definitely. Like, if you embrace and you don't sort of, if you're a good role model and people like you, and the thing is, like, we Africans, we are very social. I'm generalizing, but a lot of us are social and a lot of us like are friendly, and that really, really is a good trait that a lot of, like, in Japan anyway, it was we're very popular. Not to brag, but like, so let's say once they get past that, oh, he's different, once they know that you're just another person, and then they see that you're warm, you're kind, you're social, then after that, so I've had this case where a Japanese person, when they made the first friend with an African, then after that, every time they wanted to involve themselves in the African parties, African gatherings, because they enjoyed themselves so much, right? So
interesting.
Yeah. So
I'm trying to avoid to use that when you go once you go black. But in this context, once you go African, you never go back because Africans come in different shades. So Alex, it's been an absolute pleasure having you as one of my first guests in Natu's Corner. Thank you so much. I believe this is the first time, but not the last time. Hopefully in the next few sessions, he will be on this corner discussing about new developments, whether it's in his career, his personal life, or probably the new journey that he's taking in this land of milk and honey, aka Canada. Thank you so much for tuning in at Natu's Corner. This is a friendly reminder. If you have not subscribed already, kindly subscribe. We'll be delighted if you watch this video. Give us your feedback on the comments. Also, like this video and other videos in the past, and share messages or feedback of what is it that you like us to have on this channel. We appreciate you and thank you so much. Au revoir. Bye-bye. Kwaheri.